Good morning, afternoon, and evening, everyone. Welcome to the 27th episode of the FPL Wire powered by DreamSetGo. We are recording ahead of Gameweek 29. I'm your host Zophar, and I'm joined today, as usual, by the statsman Big Man Bakar. How's it going, bro?
Thanks for having me off. Before we begin, I'd like to make a small request to our listeners and viewers to subscribe to our channel. We need your support, so please help our channel grow. As far as my game week is concerned, I had a very good one. I had 60 points. The bulk of it was scored between my four defenders. I had Shaw, Cancelo, Diaz, and Rudiger. So four clean sheets out of four. That really helped, and others chipped in. So that helped. I'm slightly annoyed that Salah captain let me down. I had high hopes from him last night after um, every other potential captaincy option this week had failed. But it wasn't to be. But overall, I'm satisfied with how the game week has went.
Target for the end of the season, Bakar, you've been making some good progress in the past few weeks.
I'm taking it week by week. I'm not setting a specific target in my mind. I'm just playing, looking at the next game week and playing it as it is.
Right. And we also have with us, as usual, the Asian Lalana, also known to you guys as Lateriser. How's it going, buddy?
Going good. I had another nothing to talk about week. I got 49 points. I took a -4, so it was 45 net. Again, only people who got me the points were Rudiger, Cancelo, and Shaw. Nobody in attack contributed, but I had a lot of fun this week because I decided last week, that I'm just going to have some fun this season. I'm sitting outside the 1 million, so there's no point playing it safe. And I got in Kai Havertz, who was my captain. He looked pretty good in attack. He had the chances to get a goal or two, and I got in Gareth Bale as well. And actually, that made the game week very enjoyable because those two games you're watching with a lot more attention, etc. And those points are only yours, so it makes FPL a lot more enjoyable. So I had fun doing that. I think I'm going to continue in that vein until the end of the season. How about yourself? How was your week?
Decent week, 57 points. Bakar and me had actually had 10 similar players. Just he had Watkins to my Kane. That's where the 3 points difference came. But happy with how things are going. Best overall rank of the season so far, up to 22k.
Nice, 10K in sight pretty soon.
Hopefully,
I reckon.
hopefully, and especially now that really chip season is coming into play, so it should be fun, right?
Which 10K will this be if you hit it? Seventh, eighth, ninth?
Eighth, I think. I'm not sure. I only know because of the scout profiles and stuff. Right. So let's just quick off with a quick word about our sponsors. DreamSetGo is a global portal for fans to gain access to sporting events around the world. Accommodation, flight tickets, hospitality, stadium visits, everything can be tailored exactly to your requirements. They also do celebrity experiences, which include masterclasses with your favorite sports celebrity or something as simple as birthday shoutouts. You can find links to the products in the description below. The FPL Wire is a part of the Fantasy Scout Network, and all stats used in this podcast are taken from the FFS members area. Please sign up if you haven't already.
Also, if you guys don't already know, we've started the FPL Wire League. The league code for our league is DOC0YG, and this is why you should sign up because every time the manager of the week is going to win an exciting shout out from DreamSetGo from a famous sports celebrity. Just just going to announce the winners for the last 3 game weeks. Zoff already tweeted about these. In game week 26, the winner was Nyasha Mombeshora, who won a shout out from Roshni Chopra. In Game Week 27, the winner was Frederick Ulvo, who won a shout out from Yuzvendra Chahal. And this week in Game Week 28, we had Sandesh Dahal with 77 points. Now, what's interesting is Sandesh is playing 5 at the back. And there's been a lot of talk about, the points. Again, we did the game week, our points review. All the points came in from defense. He's been playing 5 at the back. And it's not a fluke game week for him. He's sitting at in the top 4K overall rank as well. So something worth considering. And Wadi captain was what brought him the points. So he wins a shout out from Dalima Chibber. Next week, the winner of the game week gets the chance to win a shout out from famous sports journalist and TV presenter Manthi Langer. She's hosted 7 World Cups. She has tons of experience under her belt. She's starting off in the Indian football circuit and she gradually moved over to cricket. Uh, and the week after that, you're going to get a shout out from the Indian squash player Deepika Pallikal. Taking you guys just through the agenda for today. I think, by the way, that's by far the most serious start we have had to the pod in a long, long time. Balancing for last weeks joking around. Just taking you guys to the agenda for today. We're going to be starting as usual with Bakar stats. After that, we have the game week review where we look at the last week's fixtures. We have a little bit of a discussion about the Man City fixtures after the international break. And that's going to involve whether you should sell your Man City players in Game Week 29 or not because of the heavy rotation that we just saw. All three of us have created free hit drafts in case we were to use the free hit chip, and we're going to be talking about a little bit about strategy around free hits. We're going to be talking about game week 29, preview it. We're going to be talking about our teams and then the standard Q&A. Bakar, floor's yours.
Yeah, so like every week, I have a few stats for our viewers and listeners. The first stat I have is regarding Brighton. So anyone who's been watching the pod over the past few weeks would know how bullish I have been on Brighton and their upcoming fixture against 29 against Newcastle in Gaming 29. I've been going on about it for weeks.
I think some
Um,
Brighton fan, we spoke about it a few weeks ago, some Brighton fan must have put some Kala Nimbu because the Nazar is finally Utrod. The evil eye is finally off Brighton. They finally won. Quite a jammy win against Southampton, but it's finally done. Go on, Bakar.
yeah, so Brighton are third for XG and first for XG conceded in home games this season, while Newcastle are 20th for XG conceded and 19th for XG in away games this season. You can see the stats are all pointing towards a comfortable Brighton win, and
Did you say
this looks
Brighton
to
are
be a break.
first for XGC?
Yeah, in home games.
Through, amongst every team.
Exactly.
That's an insane stat. That's an
That is
insane stat.
incredible. And third for XG, which is incredible as well.
So we just
Yeah.
want to monitor next
So,
season very strongly.
exactly. Um, Having said all that, I'm aware that Brighton are 18th in the home Premier League table, which which is probably one of the biggest injustices of all time, and their position in the league home table does not obviously justify their performances. It does not give justice to their performances. Recent results might put a lot of managers off Brighton defense, but I believe that their numbers at home, whether defensive or attacking, they've been borderline elite as I speak. Hence, I believe that this fixture against Newcastle needs to be looked at with far more optimism by FPL managers. To share my bullishness, to share the reason behind my bullishness, I have run a few comparisons to share with our listeners and viewers. So Brighton, I've compared Brighton's defensive and attacking numbers home and away. First, I speak about their attacking numbers. At home, Brighton are averaging 10.8 shots inside the box compared to 6.6 away from home. Big chances away from home are just 1.4, but that number rises to 2.4 big chances per game at home, while their average XG per game rises from 1.2 away from home to 1.8 at home, which again suggests how far better they're doing at home. While as far as defensive numbers are concerned, they're conceding just 4.8 shots inside the box per game at home, as compared to 6.7 away. Big chances away from home are 2.1. At home, they're just conceding zero point 0.8 big chances per game. While the average XG is telling a similar story where they're averaging just zero point 0.8 average XG conceded at home as compared to 1.2 away. Um, what do you guys have to add?
Zoff?
Really, it seems like the same thing with Brighton every week, right? We're just coming back talking. And what's ironic is the game that they won against Southampton, they actually fared worse for XC than the Saints. So I don't really know what to make of Brighton. But the thing is, right, I think while lumping on Brighton too much, we must also look into Newcastle. They showed some fight against Villa. They showed some resolve. They showed some sort of attacking impetus. And say Brighton scored an early goal, Newcastle will be trying everything to get back in the game. So I think this could be a more open game than we think.
I personally think if you're on a free hit, you go with 3 Brighton because that seems like the most predictable fixture out of all the ones that we have. And if you are not on free hit, I'm not sure if I'd bring in a Brighton player. Yes, the fixture against Newcastle is really good, but after that they have United, Everton, and Chelsea. So I don't quite like the fixtures after 29. So it depends on what strategy you're adopting when it comes to Brighton players. I feel like other teams have better continuance of a run after 29 compared to Brighton, which is why if I'm not on a free hit, I'd look at other teams.
Definitely.
Yeah. So the second stat I have is regarding Arsenal and their attack. I believe their attack is worth targeting in the blank game week as well. I've noticed that their attacking numbers, have shot up the charts in recent times. Um, Over the previous six matches, Arsenal are second only to Man City for XG, while in their previous six away fixtures, Arsenal are best in the league for XG, which bodes well for them ahead of their upcoming away game against West Ham, given that their away numbers and their recent form has been particularly good. Aubameyang has been top for shots inside the box, expected goals, and expected goal involvement among midfielders over the previous four matches. And I believe he's a good differential captain for FPL managers who are willing to punt. I believe most of the significant majority of FPL managers will be on Kane captaincy this week, but I believe Aubameyang is a nice outside shout as well, and needs to be given slightly more consideration for those managers who own him.
You think the punishment is done?
Yep.
Arteta
I
best
think
him
so.
for
I think so.
disciplinary
Yeah, yeah.
reasons.
Yep.
What if he plays 90 in the Europa League? Would you worry?
I no, I don't think I'd worry because he's just had his rest. I can't see him missing the West Ham fixture now.
Right.
Does he play a game after the West Ham fixture, or he moves into the international break after
That's
this? Straight up?
international break, no? That's 29.
International break.
Straight up. So
Yeah.
yeah, fair enough. I wouldn't be too worried
Yeah.
either.
The
Yeah,
rest
good
versus
punt.
Spurs is a big thing because that's what I was worried about. I was worried that he was going to play 90 Olympiacos, 90
Exactly.
Spurs, then 90 in the second leg, which would make
Yeah.
the West Ham game a bit iffy, but I'm not so
It
worried.
wasn't a rest though, and what I mean, just wait for the presser and see what Arteta has to say because I read that even after the game got done and they were doing their cool down and training after, he left the ground. So just wait till you hear if everything's fine. Follow a few Arsenal journalists etc. to know that everything's okay there, and then jump.
Right. The Europa League lineup will give us a clue, right? If he's starting in the Europa League, that means it's under the carpet.
Correct. Agreed. Now, anything to add, Bakar, or should we move on to the Game Week 28 review?
Let's move on.
All right. Just looking at all the fixtures, I'm going to just talk about the games, and if you guys have anything to add about that game, let me know. First up, Newcastle versus Aston Villa. What came to my mind is how poor Aston Villa looked. I mean, they didn't do much in that entire game, and like you said, Newcastle did show some fight, but there was nothing to write home about in that game. And Villa looked like a shadow of the team they were without Grealish at the moment.
And I don't think it's that simple as Grealish just slotting in and they're all of a sudden going to go into like Super Saiyan mode.
Yep. So I'm
I
worried
watched
about.
the game and Watkins was basically starved of service. He was getting into good positions, but um, particularly ever since El Ghazi came on, he every single time he had the opportunity to cross the ball in the box, he instead
just
chose to
shoots.
cut in. And I mean, there's a reason why Watkins doesn't do as well when El Ghazi is playing because El Ghazi seems to hog the majority of the shots and doesn't really pass the ball around to his teammates, which is
And
what is hurting Watkins. Now
the
he's
other
six
good
matches without a goal now.
the other good player that they have is Traore, and he's injured now as well. So that there are problems at that club right now.
Yeah, for sure.
When it comes to Newcastle, I just want to add that the Newcastle that we're going to see in this game week and the Newcastle we're going to see post 30 is going to be very different because very likely that they'll have Saint Max, Almiron, at least two of Saint Max, Almiron, and Wilson back. So they're attackers that they've relied on a lot, and so yeah, just worth monitoring that. Leeds not scoring for the third time in the last 4 games. Do you think there's a problem there?
Who have they played again?
I need to check that. I'm going to do that very quickly.
West Ham is one of them.
West Ham, Chelsea, and
So they didn't
Villa.
score against Villa, West Ham, and Chelsea.
These are three good defenses, right? To be fair, these are three of the, like you'd say, in the top 6 defenses in the league.
Yeah, fair enough. But it's not like the fixtures. I mean, they have Fulham, who's again a good defense now, in my opinion. They have a good-looking fixture against Sheffield United in 30, but after that, it's City, Liverpool, and United. I mean, relatively talking about the same kind of defenses at the moment. I'm not too worried because again, even against Chelsea, Rafinha had his chances, I thought. But yeah, just worth noting that they haven't scored in 3 out of the last 4 games. Defensively
Rafinha
looking a
is
lot
one
better.
of my first names on the team sheet. 7
I think he's
big
a decent
chances
captaincy
involved
shout.
in the
We'll talk about it once we come to it later.
Just a stat on Rafinha. I read it on Twitter, in the last 6 matches, he's top amongst everybody in the league for shots plus chances created.
Yeah.
What a player.
Yeah. Chelsea, I thought uh, Chelsea showcased a little bit of all fart, no poo. They created a lot, but still didn't look like they were going to get a goal. It always seemed like the goal was on the edge. It seemed a little sluggish, I thought, in that game. Thoughts on that game's off?
I think really Havertz was unlucky not to score, especially the one chance where he sort of entered the box, shot straight at Meslier. So I think the goal is coming. We missed Alonso on the left. Chilwell didn't really create much. We missed one more additional presence in the box. It was a game I thought it was set up well for Werner because he needed some runners in behind. But the thing is, right, anybody who plays against Leeds usually is really tired for a few days after. So I think this was a lineup with Atletico Madrid in mind.
All right. I did read an article from Kai Havertz as well, where he's expecting himself to score a few goals in the run-in as well. So yeah, wonder. You think Tuchel's going to persist playing him
I
as the
think so.
false nine?
I think so.
You recommend me? I hold Kai through the
Definitely.
next three.
Definitely, especially with the West Brom fixture in 30 and Palace in 31, I think the upside is huge.
Yeah, the fixtures are nice. After the blank, they have West Brom, Palace, and Brighton. So three decent fixtures back to back.
Precisely.
All right. Anything to add, guys? Anything to
Nothing
add,
much.
Bakar, about
Not
Chelsea
really.
Leeds?
Just 2 goals conceded now for Chelsea under Tuchel in 18 hours of football. So that's incredible.
Love
Their
it.
fixtures after 30, from Gameweek 30 onwards, are actually very good. So I mean, could be worth doubling up.
And
in
those are
defense.
Alonso fixtures, in my opinion. If you look at those, I think those are the games that we're going to see more Alonso than Chilwell.
I'm going to push you to get Alonso in 30s off because you've been talking about him for a while and I don't want you to get any seed of doubt. I think you need to go for
Mendy
it.
for those managers on wildcard is as easy a shout as it gets. I'd
Yep.
definitely pick him over
He's
Martinez now.
surprisingly good for bonus, Mendy. Last few matches, he's picked up bonus points.
Yep, I've been saying that as well. I think Mendy over Martinez is the call right now in defense. Palace, West Brom. 1-0 Palace. I don't have much to say about this game.
Nothing.
Let's not go there.
Everton Burnley is worth talking about because Burnley are playing some free flowing football. I was watching Match of the Day as well. And what they said is they're pressing a lot higher, which is why they're accumulating more chances than they normally do. And they're playing some sort of attacking game. Everton didn't do much in that game based on what I saw. So, what are your thoughts there, Soph?
I think Burnley played really good football, especially in the first half. They could have had 3-4 goals. McNeil's goal was a beauty. Everton
Oh, yeah, nice goal.
Everton had a few decent chances after they switched up the formation. So initially they started with a diamond with DCL and Richarlison up front with Iwobi playing in behind. They didn't get much joy because of the way Burnley were pressing. Once they switched to the usual formation with DCL, the lone frontman, they got a lot more chances. I think DCL had 3 big chances.
Yeah, that's true.
So I think DCL should be someone who could be back on our radar. Speaking of Everton, we should mention that they are now unlikely to have the double in 30 and 31 as was thought previously because of the TV fixtures that have come out.
Also, Bakar's man squad, worth mentioning that as well. Also, it's worth monitoring that Burnley attack at the moment because after 29, the fixtures are pretty good. They've got Southampton, Newcastle, United, Wolves, West Ham, Fulham, Leeds. That's a good run. It's a shame we think about the Burnley attack the way we do, but any scope of this attacking run continuing, you guys reckon?
I think it's far too early to say.
Far too early to say.
What I'd like to add is that Calvert-Lewin looked far more threatening than he has been in recent weeks. So he's been playing. So he was played through the middle against Burnley, and he had more shots inside the box, double the number of shots inside the box than anyone else in the Everton team. And same applies for big chances as well. 3 big chances compared to none for Richarlison. So this was the week where Calvert-Lewin really stood out, and honestly, really should have had more goals. There was one free kick that Gomez put in, and there was a cross from Digne that he just fluffed, and he really should have scored. So I actually feel a bit let down as a Calvert-Lewin owner. I really expected him to hit more, given the chances he had. It was a brilliant game to watch. I think it was the best game over the weekend.
Agreed.
Yeah.
All right, Fulham, Man City. We're going to be talking about Man City in depth later. So, anything you guys want to talk about Fulham at the moment?
Nothing much. Fulham didn't offer much this game, but I guess this is not the game that's going to decide their fate.
Exactly.
I'd just like to add that defensively, the goals they conceded, they did a decent job in the first half. In the second half, they made a few errors which led to their downfall. But overall, their numbers were pretty good. I mean, I was looking at their numbers, and the shots inside the box they conceded against City were just 7, And City in general accumulate a far higher number of shots inside the box against opposition, which tells me that Fulham are still doing well. I mean, I won't read too much into this game, but
Yeah, I
playing
think
defense is
that
okay.
Scotland actually flatters City. I don't think they played
Yes.
Fulham out of the park
Yeah,
at all. I think they did a pretty decent job. Also, just a little bit of worry uh, about Josh Maja not starting in that game against City. If I wasn't free hit, I would include him. I wouldn't be worried about this little rest that he had. I think it was tactical from Parker.
Something interesting I noticed in the second half after they went up 3-0, Torres was about to run forward to attack and Pep told him to stop. I mean, after 3 goals, they completely decided we are not going to attack anymore, not going to commit any men forward. What we have, we hold. And that's not the
Yeah,
City of last year. That just reinforces the point that they're controlling games this season.
yeah, they don't want to run too much. That's something that all their players have mentioned in the interviews as well right
Exactly.
now. All right. Next up, we have Southampton, Brighton. I thought Brighton did pretty well in attack. I thought Southampton also they finally have their first choice defense back. They've got Armstrong back. They had Minamino, who looked pretty good, who looked pretty good in attack as well. So a lot of their good players are back. When is Ings expected back? Any idea, guys?
I think soon after the IB.
All right, because they do have a nice trio of fixtures after 29. They've got Burnley, West Brom, and Palace, all three back to back. So maybe worth monitoring that because I think they look sharper than they have previously because of a lot of the first teamers coming back. Brighton, again, we're going to be discussing in depth when we're talking about our free hit draft. So let's save that for later. Leicester, Sheffield United. Yeah, I think this game is worth talking about because uh, Chris Wilder is not with Sheffield United anymore, and I think the dressing room felt that. And that final scoreline, in my opinion, is flattering Sheffield United. It should have been and could have been 9-0, 10-0 based on how they were playing. We guys were talking, and you guys mentioned that Sheffield looked like the whipping boys for the
for
run-in.
sure. Yeah, yeah.
What's
It just seems like they've given up. They're a team to target coming into the future game weeks. That's all I have to say.
It remains to be seen if they get another manager. There's talk of Jason Tindall, the ex-Bournemouth assistant
Yeah.
manager, coming. So that might give them a bit of a bounce. Maybe players play for the future next year. Who knows?
all right? Yeah, and also like just one thing when it comes to just I've seen a lot of talk about that on Twitter as well, where everybody is now said that okay, Sheffield are now the whipping boys. The- I do think that the team and the manager do realize that okay, they made so many mistakes in one game, and they're going to correct on that as well. Players are getting trained and they do realize what they're doing wrong. So I don't expect the future games to be as extreme as this Leicester game was, and I think the effect was pretty immediate, right? Like the morale was down this week because Wilder was with
Just that.
them for the last 5 years. He went away, so it's probably an anomaly because we've never seen Sheffield get beaten so drastically. Even this season, they've not gotten a lot of points, but it's never been such a hammering. So I tread with caution when coming to that assumption. That's all.
But
Leicester City just wanted to add that for the wild card especially that they have a really nice run from 32 to 35. West Brom at home, Palace at home, Southampton away, and Newcastle at home. It's a good fixture run, and the likes of Madison and Barnes could be back by then. So just something worth monitoring. Vardy is probably going to be on a lot of wild cards, I reckon.
he was so unlucky not to score that game.
Yeah, and this is he's a Sheffield Wednesday fan, right? So he loves this fixture. Boyhood Sheffield Wednesday fan. Next up, anything to add, Zoff? You were saying something.
Nothing. I was just wondering if Ian Archer should also be on the radar for somebody who's wildcarding in 30-31. Why not?
I think it depends on Madison and Barnes'
Barnes, right?
fitness. Yeah, it depends on
Exactly.
that.
But on current form, he'd be close to undroppable, I'd say.
No, I don't
He's
know.
topping the charts everywhere. You look at all the underlying attacking statistics. Iheanacho is at the top these days, but you never know once Madison and Barnes are back what whether he's gonna continue playing regularly. But
Exactly.
given his form, I expect him to start the next 2 to 3 fixtures at least.
What happens when Madison and Barnes are back?
They
I'm
could change
expecting them to.
formation and go to a 4 and retain him, so you never know. There are a lot of ways they could set up.
Yeah, I don't know. It just seems risky to me, and I feel like the points that were there for the taking are already gone. I
Past.
wouldn't go there
That's fair.
at the moment. Arsenal Spurs 2-1. I was talking about it on Twitter, where I said that I don't think Arsenal are going to bend over and let Spurs win. There was a lot of bullishness on Spurs before this game, and Arsenal have been holding their own as well. And I thought they deserved the win despite that dodgy penalty. Little worried as a Bale owner because Mourinho called him out in the post-match interview as well. Also worth mentioning that we did get a bit of information about Heung-min Son today. Alistair Gold tweeted that it doesn't look as bad as it was initially thought, and he's definitely going to be available post game week 29 after the international break, and he could even be available for the game week 29 game against Villa. So watch out and wait for the uh, presser when it comes to Spurs, because they also have a Europa League game. What's interesting is that they want Son. He's played an insane amount of minutes this year, right? So what's interesting is they'd want Son to get rested and not go and play a game for Korea. The problem is that if Mourinho plays him against Villa, then he can't do anything about not letting Son play in the international break. So that's something worth monitoring.
I don't think it's as simple as that because from what I've read from internationals, is at the first three we should mention this is not a qualifier, it's only a friendly. So a lot of times
Yeah.
when they have qualifier, these teams insist on the players flying to the camp being assessed by the local doctor, the national team doctor, and only then they decide whether he's fit to play or not. So I don't think him playing on Villa has against Villa will have that much of a bearing on his prospects in the international break.
But it just seems like this is like Spurs do have an important run in, and they're pretty comfortable in the Europa League game as well. I think this is a finally a good time to just give Son that rest because he's played an
Possibly.
insane amount of
Yeah,
minutes.
but
So I
the thing is with Mourinho, right? He could rule Son out on Friday, and you still wouldn't be surprising to see him start on Sunday.
Exactly.
fair,
Exactly.
fair. And even if he says that Son is not going to start, you don't take his word
That's
because
the
he's
problem.
done something like that in the past as well.
And the thing is, right? I think Son has a cascading effect on the entire team. We saw that against Arsenal. If Son doesn't play, it makes Kane a worse prospect. It makes Bale a worse prospect. So something to monitor.
Particularly this season, given how reliant Spurs have been on Son. I made a tweet this morning, and I was comparing their Kane's numbers this season to his numbers last season when Son wasn't playing, and they were actually very similar. But I don't think that trend will continue this season, because I just think that Son has been such a huge influence on the Spurs team. I mean, I was looking at the stats. He's created like 53 out of almost 200 chances for Spurs this season. So he's almost creating 20 to 25% of their chances, and he has had like a 50-51% big chance involvement himself. So I'm pretty sure that their attacking statistics now, that if Son is unavailable, will regress.
Right. It was also worth mentioning how Arsenal clearly targeted Bale's side because he was doing absolutely no tracking back whatsoever. All of Arsenal's attack came down their left.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I thought both Tierney and ESR were really, really good on that side. ESR has been looking like a really good player. Every time he starts, he deserves to be in the starting lineup. Been impressed with him a lot. Even Odegaard is starting to come into his own for that team now. Whoever is behind Lacazette or Oba, that young three is doing a good job. And now they have Partey and Xhaka in midfield as well. So that team is beginning to settle down. It's a good bet for the run.
I just hope Saka is not injured for a long time.
Yep. Also worth mentioning, Kane was a little unlucky to not get anything out of the game. He had two really good chances in the last 20 odd minutes. Once Spurs were down to 10 men. Also, what a game! What a goal! How can we not talk about that goal of the season for you guys? For me, it was
Yeah.
such a good goal. It's
The cheek to try it.
the cheek to try it, and in a North London derby where no team is leading comfortably. I thought that was just brilliant.
I think it's just reluctance to use his right foot.
Yeah. He's apparently tried something like this in the Europa League a couple
We've
of
seen
years
it. Yeah,
ago.
he scored one from almost outside the box with his foot. But
Yeah.
yeah, I'm just joking around. It was a great goal.
Goal of the season so far? I can't think of a better goal this season.
It'll be close between that and Reece James against Brighton on the opening day. I love a howitzer from outside the box.
Nice.
I still think Lamella's
Probably.
the one for me.
Insane. My mouth was open for
incredible.
like 5 minutes after watching that. That's great. United West Ham. Moaz played a slightly defensive lineup, and that game sort of went as expected. For clean sheets in a row now for United, so we're beginning to show some stability. Shout out to Shaw and Maguire, both of whom have been. I mean, Shaw has rightly been getting the credit for the past few months, but I thought Maguire has been really good for us as well, and just happy with how the team is progressing. I thought Bruno was unlucky to not get anything, and one player as a United fan I want to mention who's starting to come into his own and gain some form is Mason Greenwood. I think you need to monitor him for the next few weeks. I think could be quite useful. And just on that note, Solskjaer mentioned today also that we're getting Martial, Cavani, Pogba, and Van de Beek back. So, for important players, I think that might help us in the run in. Getting them back fit, especially Pogba, I think is going to make a big positive difference to that team.
Yep. Can rotate a bit also with the Europa League.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yep.
And Wolves versus Liverpool. Pakar, why don't you talk about this one?
I mean, I watched bits and parts of the game, and what caught my eye was the fact that Mane basically refused to pass to Salah on so many occasions, and it was just incredible and frustrating to watch as a Salah captainer. Um, Other than that, it was a nice game to watch. I don't really have much to add other than the fact that I'm assuming that it's like 12 blanks in 15 now for Salah. So every man and his dogger will be selling him this week. I still plan to get him back though, in game week 31, 32. I don't think I've lost all hope on him yet. But let's see. Let's see.
What do you make of Jota's performance?
Yeah, I mean he has that X factor, doesn't he? He seems to get pull a rabbit out of the bag every single time Liverpool need him. Yeah, I think he can be worth monitoring from
Yeah.
game week 30 onwards as well.
On a 31
What
wild card, I'd probably bring in Jota and leave out Salah.
what do you guys think about the Michael Owen theory? They showed like two or three occasions where Mane could have gone down in the box and he didn't. And there's a theory floating around that he doesn't want Salah to get a penalty. And we were having this discussion on the group this morning as well. And there have been three or four occasions when something like this has happened. Do you buy it? Do you think there is something to it?
Not at all.
I think it might be too far fetched, but looking at the whole game, I mean, from open play, he had so many opportunities to pass to Salah. Right at the end, Salah would have been clean through had he passed to him. I think in stoppage time, didn't happen. So I mean, I can see why the conspiracy theories are getting more traction
Uh,
because
I was
if
talking to Phil, who's a Liverpool fan, and he was like, "Look at the free kick that Mane won. He fell down just like that, just because it was a free kick. I don't know, something worth noting. I'm waiting. I'm waiting till Mane actually converts a goal and puts it in, because like when I'm watching Liverpool or when I'm watching the highlights, there's no doubt in my head that right now he's getting 60 to 70% of the bulk of the chances
yeah.
that Liverpool are getting. They're all falling to him. He's just not converting them. He's in such poor form, and I don't want to. I've fallen into that trap of a player getting a bulk of chances but not finishing them this season with Sterling and Werner. So I don't know if I want to go down that route again. But he's getting the bulk of the chances for Liverpool at the moment. All
Let's
right,
move on.
let's move on. Let's talk about the.
I'll
Yeah,
just
go
do
on.
the
Sorry.
I'll just do the Patreon plug before we talk
Yeah.
about Man
Sure.
City. So as you guys know, we have recently started a Patreon page at patreon.com/the FPL Wire. We put a lot of time and effort into this, and we need your support to grow the channel and help improve the production value. It's the equivalent of buying each of us a coffee a month. That's it. Shout out to our newest patrons in the Omar tier, Saad Malik, in the Jimmy tier, Ben, Sanjay Asarpota, Ruben Jongstra, and Anthony Betts. Thank you for your
Also,
support.
it's also just worth adding to that. You're not buying all three of us a coffee or a beer. Also, you're just buying one of us, in case you feel like buying all three of us. Yeah.
Right, let's
Let's
talk
talk about
about
the.
City.
Yeah. So why don't you take us through this?
Right. So I have a chart over here with the fixtures for Man City. Now the fixture congestion, as somebody once I posted on Twitter pointed out that this is something similar to what United and City have been having since the beginning of the season. But the difference here is now, right? A, the quality of the opposition is going to be much better now. You might end up facing the likes of PSG, Dortmund, etc. And it's also much later stages in the cup competitions. You're talking about semi-finals. You're talking about finals. So I don't think it's maybe quantitatively it's the same thing, but qualitatively the fixtures are definitely much more important now. So an interesting, just before we got onto the pod, and I haven't had the time to digest all of this, we messaged Johnny Pringle, who's also a patron of the pod, and he's one of the correspondents for Man City for Planet FPL, and he's of the view that we are possibly overthinking the rotation aspect. He reminded us that the league still isn't clinched. There is still, Guardiola still wants to win the league, and ultimately above all the priority remains the league. So he's just saying possibly don't overthink rotation. The likes of Diaz should get consistent minutes. De Bruyne should get consistent minutes. What
I'm
do you
I'm
think?
not as bullish as him. I'm not as bullish as him because the
Same here.
the points
Same here.
gap in the league is 14 points, and Guardiola has been there and done that, but the league it's clinched. Let's face it, it's done with. It's the Champions League that Guardiola has not won in a decade now, and that's the one he really wants. And the prime fixture when it comes to City is the one that's sandwiched between the two Champions League ties.
31.
Uh, yeah, so in 31 they play Leeds at home, and 3 days before that and 3 days after that they have the Champions League game. And so just for the benefit of the listeners, I'm going to read out the fixtures as well. So on the 17th they have their second leg against Gladbach. On the 20th they play their FA Cup game against Everton. After that we have the international break where quite a few of the City players will be participating. After that, on the 3rd of April they play Leicester away. On the 6th they have their first leg. On the 10th they play Leeds at home. On the 13th they have the Champions League second leg. On the 17th they have their FA Cup semi-final if they beat Everton. And on the 20th they have a league game against Villa. On the 25th they have their Carabao Cup final against Spurs. So it doesn't look that great to me. To be very honest, I think my route through this period would be to go with the cheap guys and have a strong bench when it comes to the defenders and the midfielders.
I totally agree. The problem is going to be captaincy, right? Now they have certain fixtures now, like you said, the 31 fixture is what we are looking at. We look at big teams when they play Leeds, and we look for captaincy there. And the thing is, right, games against Leeds are tiring. In between two Champions League tie, and you also have a tough. I think against the Leicester game, for example, I don't think he's going to rotate in the Leicester match, given Leicester's league position right after the international break. So
Yeah.
if you look at the other fixtures there, the UCL first leg, the game where he is probably going to rotate is Leeds because you have also the cup semi a few days after
Yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah. And it's not even as predictable as you think it is. If you were sort of following the Pep roulette, and you would have thought that Sterling got his rest before the Fulham game, he wasn't even in the squad for the Fulham game. And so I don't think it's as predictable as we think it might be. But I'd still think, because I looked at the fixtures in 31 as well. No other fixtures quite stand out as much for captaincy. It's this game. So probably I'll probably just leave myself with the opportunity to get myself a City captain based on the last 2-3 games in the Champions League for that game week alone. I think that's how I plan on playing that week.
So
The thing that's caught my eye is the fact that Pep has actually come out and literally just said that we're going to rotate 6-7 players every game. It's not just hearsay anymore. Like, he's going to do it. He's admitted it. So
Yeah.
I mean, given the fact that now they have just 3 games in itself in the next 5 game weeks, I can see where you're coming from, and I'm very sure that the likes of Gundogan, Cancelo, they won't even play all 3 fixtures.
Yeah.
So I can see why you'd want to sell a City player at the moment.
Yeah. Maybe the likes of Aguero could be the ones getting the games in the league.
somebody made a good point about that on Twitter that we target the fringe players, and this is something I did a few years ago when Liverpool under Klopp in the first season were in the
Yeah.
Europa League for a while. Remember Sturridge? Sturridge was getting a game in the Europa League and was consistently starting every league game. So, but I don't think it's as simple as that with Guardiola. I don't think he's going to like keep Aguero permanently on the fringes and something. And I maybe the comments he's made has put a lot more fear into us. Even if he came out and said that I'm not going to rotate, I'm not going to believe him. Because just based on what he's done in the last 3-4 years, he's going to rotate. That's his style. So maybe the comments have put a lot more fear into us.
Yeah, earlier rotation was 2 players, 3 players. You kind of knew that the likes of
Exactly.
De Bruyne, Sterling was safer, but I don't blame him because look at the squad he has, and that's the squad he has is the only reason City don't look as leggy as the other teams because of the rotation that Pep has done,
Right.
because of the
Absolutely.
rotation that, and that's why they look fresh, and that's why they look like completely dismantling all the other teams that they're playing at the moment. So he needs to keep this going. I understand. I don't think it's possible for him to win all the competitions if he doesn't rotate. He needs to keep his players fresh. I mean, look at that schedule. That's gruesome.
Right. So
Yeah.
let's start talking about what we plan to do with our assets now. Let's say LR now. Who have you got and what's your plan?
I've got Gundogan and Cancelo at the moment. I'm thinking of selling one or two of them. If I had a Diaz or a Stones, I wouldn't have sold them. Gundogan, I don't mind because I think he's not going to play that Leeds game because I think he's very important for the two Champions League ties personally. So I don't mind selling Gundogan, and that's where I am at the moment. And I'm keeping myself open to buy one asset in game week 31. I'm hoping it's Aguero. So yeah, that's where I am at the moment. I'm with you on the fringe theory if I'm targeting, but I think there are lots of other teams with much more nailed players offering options at the moment. So you don't necessarily need to look at City as well.
I agree. Bakar,
Mm.
So I have Diaz, Cancelo, and Gundogan.
same three.
Um, I'm not looking to sell Diaz at all. I think he's the most secure out of the lot, and there's a good chance that he might play all the league games. So I won't sell him. I might look at selling Cancelo, but I have a decent bench. So I mean that's one thing. I mean Cancelo over the past 12 appearances in the league, he's had just the one sub appearance. So if you can afford to bench someone like Cancelo, I don't mind that personally, given the upside when he plays. So I might not actually sell Cancelo either. Gundogan is cheap, but he's someone I'm unsure about. I honestly don't know what to do with him. I'll make my mind up closer to the deadline.
Zoff?
So I have the same three players at Bakar. Let's just talk through them one by one. Diaz, like we said, the fixture congestion has not been too different from what he's
Sure.
played every game since then, and he's very unlikely to get subbed on at any point. So you keep hold on to him there. Cancelo's a bit.
Just on that note, Pep did mention that he wants to get Ake involved as much as possible as well and start playing him as well. Maybe the Carabao Cup or the FA Cup games, Ake
Possible
gets
sub
just
on, or maybe like
yeah.
maybe in a back three, anything's
Yeah.
possible. So I think out of all of the assets, Diaz is probably the easiest to retain. There's not really much concern over. The Cancelo is a bit trickier because I think his game time is going to be managed a little bit, and he's a sort of player I think suits the European style. We've seen him get a lot more returns in European competition than he does in the Premier League, and he's also at more risk of I think a sub on than the other guys like Stones, for example. Stones and Diaz, if you have these guys, you just probably stick with them because it's unlikely you're going to see cameo appearances. Cancelo is a bit trickier, but as we saw the last game week, he can deliver a haul on his day. But I think if you at 5.5, I don't mind holding him. Similar with Gundogan, I got him at around 5.5, and the 5.5 to 6, I think besides Rafinha, I don't think there's any other better midfielder. Maybe you could say Lingard. So KDB is a real tricky one here, right? Because a lot of us had planned to ship Salah, make room for KDB, but just looking at that fixture run, I'm a bit put off by the KDB investment.
What dilemma people are going to be facing, Zoff, I reckon, in 30 or on the wildcard is for that 5.5 million. Now, people have money. We don't need too much cash this season, as we've seen, because a lot of
Correct.
cheap assets are available. For that cheap midfielder spot, now you have two really good alternatives. You have Mason Mount and you've got Diego Jota as well as
Correct.
options in the post 30 period as well. So if I were to give you an option on wildcard to pick two of them, would Gundogan be in the first two, you reckon?
I think it would probably be Jota, Gundogan,
Yeah,
and Mount because I'm still not that bullish on Mount as most people are.
I'd
All right,
agree. I'd agree.
fair enough.
One more point on the Cancelo things off. Cancelo's just been subbed on once in the league this season. So do you think that he's as prone to a one pointer
So the thing
as?
is, right, with this fixture congestion, a lot of times he's going to, let's say, he rests a player, he might rest him and give him like 30 minutes or whatever. That's what I worried about. With this fixture congestion, I think cameos are a bit more likely.
Yeah, but with Pep, he doesn't really have a history of bringing his fullbacks on
Yeah.
later in games. So I mean, I
Yeah,
don't
he's
think
he's
personally that's
relatively
much of a
safe. I
concern.
think I think you're right probably. So I think he's relatively safe, which is why I am
Yeah,
inclined to hold on to him as well.
yeah.
Just now, while we were talking about Jota, I know I'm digressing a little bit. You have to keep in mind Liverpool are also in the Champions League, and arguably Liverpool have to place a greater impetus on it as a route into the Champions League next year. So that is something to keep in mind. With it's not as clear cut with Jota as well.
Fair, fair. But I think Liverpool still have a decent shout of uh, coming into the top four. I think they're 5 points behind Chelsea at the moment, same amount of games played. So the league games are as important for them,
No,
if you ask me.
I agree. To that extent, they
Yeah,
definitely need to place more emphasis than City do.
yeah, yeah.
So in short, what do you guys suggest? I still think it's a hold. I probably
Yeah.
wouldn't buy maybe two if you want to, because the thing is ultimately in terms of consistency for points, they're still the go-to, right?
No, there are options offering points as
That's
well.
true. In
I
terms of
mean,
Chelsea
yeah,
defense has opened up now. You could say the
yeah,
Chelsea
Chelsea.
defense can substitute.
Your United defense is showing consistency now.
United
West Ham
defense is
defense
showing.
is there.
And it also makes a difference in terms of what your strategy is for 33, right? On wildcard, if you are
Definitely.
not going to free hit in 33, then on wildcard there's a case for getting rid of all your City players.
Fair. Yeah. I'd still hold on to maybe one of the centre backs for sure. Even Stones for that matter, because he's not that expensive. And he's got a decent amount of goal threat as well, as we've seen.
It's
He's got a
ridiculous. I
lot
think
of.
at
Yeah.
4.8, Stones has people who got him at that point is the bargain of the season.
Yeah, owning Diaz over Stones has been very painful past few weeks. Whenever Diaz plays without Stones, City don't keep a clean sheet, and whenever Diaz plays with Stones, Stones is the one who
No,
scores. So it's very,
and it's funny
very
because the
annoying.
times Diaz scored, Stones also scored. This week, when Cancelo got a haul, Stones also got a haul. So
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
been like that all season.
I missed him. I sold him on the wild card, but I'm happy for him. Happy for him. Good guy.
Yep. Let's move on from Man City.
Yep.
Right, now let's talk about this is pretty much the main topic this week, the free hit macro strategy and navigating blank game weeks 29 and 33. So I
So you
know,
want to go for it fixture wise?
I mean, let's talk about it more of a macro discussion, right? Rather than
First?
talk,
Okay.
let's talk about
Cool.
because all three of us are on a similar strategy. We've used our wild card and we have our free hit available, but let's try to keep everybody else in mind as well once we
Yep.
discuss this. So what has
What's the.
happened initially now, right? What was something we need to consider is all the injuries to players that people have been building up to for 29. Now you have Dan Burn, who's possibly injured, you have Son, who's possibly injured, and you have Bamford. So a lot of
Yeah,
people have been
Saka too. Saka.
and Saka also. So you have a lot of people who have been preparing for this week, but they're now beset by injuries. Excuse me, somebody is knocking. Ella, could you just take over?
Yeah. So, yeah, the landscape has changed in terms of players available for people who even have been planning for game week 29. So this is something worth monitoring. Now what we're going to do is we're going to talk about the four categories of people that are people who have a free hit but don't have a wild card, people who have both the second wild card as well as a free hit available, people who don't have a free hit but just the second wild card available, and people who don't have any of them in terms of how many hits should they take, etc., etc. So let's talk about the people who have a free hit and no wild card like us. Bakar,
Yeah.
what are you thinking in terms of strategy at the moment?
So I at the moment have five players for the free hit. Actually six, assuming that Son is fit. If Son and Bamford both are fit, then I have six players, and I have two
And how
free
many free
transfers.
transfers?
Two
Two.
free transfers. Yeah, six, assuming that Son and Bamford both are fit. Um, if that is the case, I'm probably gonna go with eight. But if Son and Bamford are injured, I'm more inclined to free hit. That's the way I'm looking at it because that's too big an advantage to let go. Honestly, I'd probably free hit in that case.
How many points would you ideally look to gain in a free hit?
15, I think.
15, I
That's
think. No?
it. 15 seems so
Yeah,
low. 15 is possibly just one player hauling.
Yeah, I know, but if
I'm
you
being
have
very
a.
conservative here, given the fact that Brighton have consistently trolled their XG this season. So I'm being very conservative. But yeah, I'd be happy with 15 honestly because I when you look at how game week 18 was it right when most people free hit it, they didn't get an advantage of more than 10 15 back then. So I'd want to make that up minimum.
Yeah,
Absolutely, you'd want
and
at least double that, I would say.
it's difficult though, because if you're talking about a
I'd be
free
happy
hit,
with whatever comes my way, but I've just got to set a minimum target.
I just can't help but wonder if there's a hint in there somewhere, Bakar. I'm sorry. All right. Anyway, what I want to talk about is something that we were discussing just before we got on and started recording the pod is in terms of base points and what is the comparison that you're making. Let's say after using your free transfers, you have seven players. This is the comparison you need to make. That if you have seven players, if you're free hitting, you're gonna get four additional players. That's likely eight base points more. And let's
Yeah,
say out of the four additional players that you're getting, two of them perform, get you either a clean sheet or a goal. So that's 7 to 8 points more. So
yeah,
how much is that? That's 8 plus
15.
8, 16 points.
Yeah,
Now, what the assessment that you need to make if you're in this situation is, do you back yourself to build a free hit draft that's going to get at least 15 to 20 points over your original draft in the future? And that's the only comparison you need to make, in my opinion, because it's so subjective to your own team. So this is the assessment you need to make. That's all I want to say.
absolutely.
Yeah.
I think there's also another thing to consider here is that ultimately the players you're buying, let's say you're taking hits or you're making transfers, do you want those players beyond 29? Or do you want those players only for a shorter period? Now, let's say you're making improvements to your squad. In my case, I need to get rid of Brewster. If I bring in Bamford for Brewster, there's a transfer that's going to benefit my squad not only this week, but in the long term. Now, let's say I do Salah to Aubameyang. Now, Auba has this week West Ham, then he has Liverpool, and then he has Sheffield and Fulham. It could be a transfer that pays off over 3-4 weeks again. So things like that, maybe Antonio to DCL, not so much. And also you have to keep in mind, where are the players? Let's say you have 7 attackers and you're short in defense. I think that's still fine because defenders, ultimately the ceiling for points this week looks pretty low. Brighton have the highest clean sheet odds by far, and that's not too high. I think that's 32, 33.
Not based on this season, if you ask me, Zophar. I mean, the defenders have been the ones carrying us week on
That's
week.
true. That's true. Not this
Yeah.
I
season
agree with
as
that,
much.
yeah.
But
Yeah,
there's going to be a lot of cross plays, right? You're going to have a lot of attackers who are playing defenders in the same game. So
Agree.
in that sense, the ceiling seems a little bit low. So
Yeah, fair.
so it's a bit different, like for guys now who have a wild card to play. That's why I have all the 4 sections over here. So like let's say now if you have your wild card to play in 31, it's very easy for you to remove your City players, you remove your Spurs players, and you can navigate game week 33 pretty easily. Now, let's say somebody like us, we are planning to keep a large part of our City players. We still want to retain the likes of Kane and all that stuff. So for us, it's a bit good. 33 is going to be navigating. It's going to be a bit trickier because we're going to have to dedicate every transfer to removing
Yeah.
players who blank in 33 rather than focusing on players.
Yeah, just worth mentioning for those that are not aware that 4 teams do blank in Game Week 33 because of the Carabao Cup final. That's Fulham, Man City, Southampton, and Spurs. Just wanted to add that. That's all.
Right. And another now curveball to thrown into it is that double game week 35 is looking like a possibility due to the fixture reshuffle at the end of the season. The Everton Villa might drop there. Spurs Southampton might drop there. So something that might be beneficial in that week to
Yeah,
use a free hit.
agreed. But I think when it comes to the Spurs and the City players, I think going without the City players is manageable. So if you do decide to sell your City players for the forthcoming schedule and you're lumping onto more nailed players, I think it's fine. Spurs players maybe not so much because they do have a good run and they're the ones out of the very few attackers that are consistently giving us points at the moment. So I do think going without City players is manageable at the moment. So let's do this category by category. So the category that we are in with a free hit and no wildcard in place, I think it's okay to free hit if you're like having only 5 or 6 players after using your free transfers in game week 29. If you're around the 7, 8, 9 player mark, I'd maybe hold on to that free hit chip.
That's
You
right.
think 7 is worth saving at?
I think so.
7 is right on the edge. It depends on the
Yeah,
players you have.
7
Depends on the
is
players.
borderline.
Again, it depends on the players. If you have most of the guys who you think are legit captaincy options, I think it's fine. And we'll get into that once we talk about our teams individually. So that's why we can sort of skip. Let's talk into the second category now. People who have the free hit and second wild card available.
I'd be more inclined to use the free hit then.
Absolutely.
Try taking
Absolutely.
that
Yeah.
advantage.
Then you can set up for 33 very easily.
Exactly.
You don't need to worry about that. It doesn't make sense buying players for hits now when you're going to use the wild card very soon either. So you're not really setting up for the long term. So I like the free hit in this category now. The third one, which is I think a very large part of the crowd falls under, no free hit, but second wild card available. A lot of our followers are on this strategy. So what do you guys think here?
In that case, just try getting as good a team as possible this week, and then wildcard. Don't wildcard this week. I wouldn't wildcard this week. Wildcard after.
Yeah,
Because
definitely.
if you're wildcarding this week, you're going to shoehorn yourself into getting majority of Arsenal, Spurs, West Ham, Leeds, and maybe some Fulham players. And there are other options there for the taking. Like you don't want to starve yourself out of United and Liverpool options on your wildcard, which look good for the run. Leicester options, which look good for the run-in. So I wouldn't wildcard this week and try to keep a balanced squad. Just make the most of what you can in game week 29 and then wildcard after in 31
agree.
probably.
31 is probably the week we are looking to
Correct.
wildcard, right? Because I think a lot of teams which have good fixtures in 29 have good fixtures in 30 as well. Primary of Villa, Leeds, and all those guys.
Correct.
Right. For those with no free hit, no second wild card, again, bring in players who you're happy to retain, For the long term, taking hits is worth it. I think if you're happy holding those players, don't look for them to repay the points over 1 or 2 weeks, but rather 4 to 6 weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think there are teams that fall into this category. Arsenal fall into this category because after West Ham, they have Liverpool, Sheffield, Fulham, Everton, Newcastle, West Brom. They look good to
Exactly.
me. Spurs fall into this category for sure, in my opinion. Because after Villa, they have Newcastle at home, United, Everton, a blank, Sheffield United, Leeds, Wolves. So you can hold them for the long term as well. Fulham also fall into this category because immediately after Leeds, they have Villa and Wolves. So that's a good set of three fixtures that you're buying your players for. Leeds, I'm not completely sure of because after Fulham they have Sheffield United at home, and after that they have City, Liverpool, United. So I'm not entirely sure about them. West Ham are great long-term buys because they're in the race for fourth and they have a good run at the end of the season and they are reliable nail players. So I wouldn't mind pumping on West Ham players as well. So there are 4 or 5 teams who are offering you good purchases now that are good in the mid to long term as well. So that
Exactly.
just purchase players from those teams.
Right. So I think we've
Definitely.
covered the topic of players worth taking a negative 4 for. Players from the teams you just mentioned.
Correct.
Right now, so how many players is a minimum is a question that people are looking to answer, but I don't think it's simple as just a number. It depends on the players.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But if it was 7, so how many more? 8, 9, 10, 11.
I'm
4 players, 8, 16 base points would be worth it. Probably worth it, in my opinion, based on the calculations that we did right now.
I would say 7 is probably the minimum for me. I think not necessarily 8. I'll be okay with 7 just because of how limited the talent pool is this week, especially if now let's say Bamford and Son are out. I struggle to think like while making the free hit, like while we were making our drafts, I'm sure you guys must have experienced the same. You're just looking around like where do I put the players? Which players do I get? The pool is so limited.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but there is like the so point that other people are making is that we are possibly overthinking it. This is the only week where you're going to get a guaranteed benefit of the free hit.
Correct. Correct.
Exactly. This
Yeah.
is a
Not
very underrated point, I believe.
exactly. Agreed. Because I do like Bakar's argument that in another week when you're free hitting, your original team can. There's a good chance it outscores your free hit team. There's no
Or at least
guarantee.
you can come close.
Yeah.
Come close,
There's no
but then
guarantee.
again, like there are two more. There's one more blank to come. Most likely, in fact, two more blanks to come because there might be some more thing because of the fixture reshuffle and another double possibly to come.
Yeah, yeah.
That
That's
is
the thing worth monitoring, which we don't know about. That's all.
that's
This
possibly
is what makes it
close.
tricky, that we don't exactly know what's in front of us, and yet we have to make the decision to free hit this week.
And also, like if you're shipping out Man City players, if you're shipping out Spurs players, then do you need to free hit in 33? That argument spins back around again.
Yep.
Hmm.
Agreed.
So it all depends a lot on your team, and I think we'll be discussing our drafts and teams. So hopefully that will help you guys decide further. Let's have a look first at what Bucker's got in mind for a free hit draft.
Just to let you guys know, this is just an exercise that we did where we thought we'd help you guys with what our free hit drafts would look like if we were to free hit. Neither of us are surely definitely free hitting at the moment. I don't think any of the three of us have made up our minds just yet.
We did it the last time, right? We did a small compo where we
Yeah.
saw what our drafts would do like, and so we'll announce our final version possibly on Thursday, Friday after the team news has come in regards to Sun and Bamford. But for the purpose of this, we have assumed that Sun and Bamford will both be out.
Yeah.
All right. Bakar, state your starting 11.
Yeah. For the free hit draft, for the free hit draft, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for the free hit draft, I'll probably roll with Lloris in goal, given how poor Villa have looked of late. I'll go with Welkman and Dunk, given the Brighton defensive statistics that I mentioned. Tierney at the back. I think he offers something going forward as well. Aubameyang, Bale. Pepe is someone I've picked given how good Arsenal's attacking numbers have been, and this is again subject to the fact that Saka is ruled out, and he's been playing well in recent weeks as well. Then I have Trossard, Rafinha. Up front, I have Kane and Antonio. So 3-5-2. This is obviously open to change, and I might post an updated one later in the week, uh, given more news. But at the moment, this is something roughly I have in mind should I choose to free hit.
Kane captain.
Kane or Robba, I'm not so sure. I'm not too sure about Kane.
I think Kane would depend on Sun's fitness, right? If Sun's out, then I wouldn't feel
Yeah,
confident about captaining Kane.
yeah, it's 50-50.
right?
Uh, uh, the person who does the captaincy articles for Fantasy Football Scout, Geo, is probably captaining Trossard this weekend. This fortnight.
They're
I love that.
bookies' favorites for 2.5 plus goals this week, so why not?
I mean, yeah, if there's any week we're going to captain Trossard.
Somebody that just for fun, yeah. All right, I'll take you guys through my team. Like Bakar, I've doubled up on the Brighton defense because they look odds-on favorite for the clean sheets. But I've gone for Sanchez as keeper and Dunk as my defender, and I've got for Reguilon as a defender from Spurs. So we have the same composition in defense. Even I have Tierney and Reguilon. I've just gone for a different keeper to Bakar, and instead of Veltman, I've gone for Reguilon as my defender. In midfield, I have Trossard, Oba, Bale, and Rafinha. I'm going for a 3-4-3. I've got Odegaard on my bench, who I really fancy as well for this week. I think he's been looking really good. He's in and around the box as well. And up front, I have Kane, Antonio, and Josh Maja. As you guys have probably heard in the pod earlier as well, I'm a pretty big good fan of Josh Maja, and he's been getting a lot of good chances, and I expect that to continue in this game. I think that Leeds game actually suits the Fulham attackers quite a bit, so I fancy some Maja in that game.
I agree. Fulham attackers are possibly being overlooked.
Yep.
Yeah, Leeds are their attacking. The defensive statistics away from home are shocking. Top for big chances conceded and XG conceded away from home.
But in general,
Yeah.
they look a bit tighter. I think the last few weeks, they haven't looked as open as they did in the first few weeks of the season.
Yeah. But on free hit, I definitely throw in one Fulham attacker. Whether it's Maja or Lookman, I throw in one attacker. Even Anderson is a good shot because of the set
Set
piece
piece.
possibility that
Yeah.
Leeds have. So it's a good shout there as well.
I agree. Right. I'll just walk through my draft. Same thing. I think Sanchez in goal. Cresswell. I actually got in Cresswell. I'm surprised none of you guys have got him. Cresswell, Dallas. I think Dallas might be playing in midfield again, and Veltman. Then Oba, Trossard, Lingard, Rafinha, and up front Antonio, Maja, and Kane. So, just quickly going through like what we've got in common. I think double Brighton defense seems to be a theme. I've ignored the Spurs defense. Both you guys have gone in on Spurs defense. I guess that depends if Grealish is fit or not. I think probably if Grealish is fit, you guys would probably remove the Spurs defender.
Yeah. They're not expecting him to be fit, though.
definitely.
No, I'm not either. Just hypothetically, like.
Yeah, probably.
So Oba and Trossard Trossard, Rafinha. I think seems to be a common theme going forward. I think all of us have got Antonio as well.
And Kane, yeah.
Yeah.
Antonio. So
I see you've completely ignored Bale's off.
Yeah, because I think if Son is out, I don't think I want Bale.
That's interesting.
I'm not.
And one other comment thread, none of us are, all of us have similar hatred towards Neil Maupay. None of us have Neil Maupay.
Yeah, I was going to bring
in
that
our
up. No
drafts,
Mope either.
Hell
Yeah.
no. Hell no.
I think he's a decent free hit pick for just 1 week. I don't.
I didn't
think he's
expect you
that-
to have him. I didn't expect you
Yeah.
to have him.
Yeah, I mean,
like
see, for me,
I
it's
thought Zoff
a
would probably pick him.
for me, it's a question of principle, right? But I don't think everybody shares the same principles that I do when it comes to Neil Maupay. So he's decent for 1 week as a punt. That's all.
And 50-50 between him and Trossard, honestly. It's not that clear cut. Mope is actually second for goal scorer odds this week after Kane.
Yeah.
Bookies love him this week.
I like Welbeck more. If I had to pick on a 1 week like punt, I'd sort of like Danny Welbeck a bit more.
Sure. All right. So
Let's
that's it.
talk
Do you guys want to discuss the games?
Yeah, let's just have a quick look of fixtures and captains since we're only at 1 hour in, so we
Okay.
still have some time to discuss. So let's
Yeah.
talk about first Fulham Leeds. Let's give our score predictions. What you guys think? Bakar first.
I'd probably go with 1-1, I think. It's a tough game to call. I'd probably go with a 1-1. Yeah. I think Leeds will score, and I think Fulham will definitely score as well. But 1-1 sounds good.
I'm going for 2-1 Fulham.
Interesting.
3 crucial points for them.
I was actually going the other way. I think Leeds will win this one. I've gone for 2-1 Leeds. I think a lot depends on Bamford being fit. The rumor is right now is that it's a dead leg. It's not confirmed yet. But I think if Bamford is fit, do you think this condensed small pitch suits Leeds? A little bit. I think maybe because because the way they press, right? They can make the pitch feel very small.
Yeah, agree. Probably.
And
I do expect some goals in this game, though. I expect a minimum of 2 or 3 goals in this game.
I think it all depends on who gets the first goal and how early they get it. If Leeds do score early, then it could be a really open game. Brighton Newcastle. I'll go first. 1-0 Brighton.
I'll
2-0.
go for 2-1.
2-0 in my opinion.
Yeah, I think Newcastle sneak in one goal because of the point that you made, that if Brighton do come ahead, the Newcastle are going to do everything in their power. It's the game of the weekend for me, even just from the relegation fight point of view. This is the one that I want to watch.
So much nerves, right? It's going to be all
So
about
much nerves, yeah.
That's the thing when Brighton go up.
Imagine Brighton versus Newcastle being the game of the week heading into the game.
I enjoy. I'm a big fan of the relegation
Yeah,
race always
yeah.
at the end of the season. These games are a lot of fun.
I just wish there were crowds. Like, when the crowd comes and you can feel the tension. I just remember back in the day, these relegation games used to be like, you'd see 3-4, 5-3, crazy scorelines in these games. So either of these two. Now let's cycle backward. Do you think Rafinha is a legit captain shout this week? I think he is.
I agree. I think he is.
Got so many routes to points.
Yeah, he probably is, but I won't go there personally.
I think that with Rafinha, I think there is a little bit of price bias. If Rafinha was probably 8 or 9 million, some more people would have captained him.
Definitely.
There is a little bit of price bias because he's been posting the stats. I think he's a good captaincy shot.
Yeah. West Ham, Arsenal. Do you think West Ham will be as defensive as they were at Old Trafford?
Probably not, but I still expect it to be a fairly tight game. I'm expecting maybe a 1-1 or something of that sort.
I've been impressed by Arsenal attack, and like the stats Bakar posted earlier that they've actually been attacking a decent amount away from home.
Yeah. But West Ham are a good defense, right? So I don't expect it to. And Arsenal have been doing pretty decently in defense as well. Apart from, they tend to concede some big chances. They don't concede a lot of chances, but their chances that they concede are sort of howlers. So maybe Antonio takes advantage of one of those chances. So that I'm expecting a 1-1 of sorts.
Antonio's numbers have been really down, I think, the last few weeks, right? I think he's had one shot in the last 2 matches in total.
Yeah. Also worth mentioning, none of us had him in our free hit drafts, but Lingard does like playing against the Gunners.
I had him.
Oh, you had him. Yeah. He likes playing against the Gunners. Always likes playing against them. Shows up for those games against Arsenal.
And I think it showed really how important he's become to the team. Against United, they had absolutely no ball progression whatsoever without Lingard.
Bakar posted some interesting stats on Twitter today.
Their big chances with Lingard are 2.5 per game as compared to 1.8 without. So he makes a significant improvement to the way they play. They're far more fluid, smoother when he's in the team. So I do expect West Ham to score, but I think Arsenal will win. I'll go with 2-1 Arsenal.
1-1 for me.
Yeah, I'm going 1-1 too.
Right. So keep in mind, none of us have predicted a lot of goals or any clear-cut results so far. From what I can say, I don't think there's any team we've all agreed that is going to be a win for. I think maybe Brighton.
Yeah.
We've all picked a win for Brighton so far.
This is what makes a free hit difficult.
Yeah. Precisely. So then let's say Villa Spurs.
I think it's going to be comfortably the worst game of the weekend. That's something I can vouch for.
Yeah, it's going to be the last game also, right?
Yeah, I can just feel like it's going to be a drab, sort of a workman-like game.
You know what?
Probably.
You know what I'm looking to most forward after this international break? The end of daylight savings. All the games 1 hour earlier for us. It's going to be so much better.
Yep. I'll say 1-0 to Spurs. Harry Kane goal.
2-0 Spurs for me.
I go 1-1.
1-1. Nice.
Yep. You're not sitting on the fence at all.
All right. Captains, where are you guys at the moment?
I think Kane is going to be by far the most popular captain. But I'm not sure he'll necessarily be the best captain. It all depends now. I think Bakar had mentioned this before we started, that away from home, Spurs really don't commit that much in attack, do they?
Yep. And I mentioned this last week as well when we were discussing Spurs away to Arsenal. That away from home, they aren't that attacking. Captaincy is 50-50. If Son is fit, I'll probably go with Kane. If he isn't, then I think if I get Aubameyang, I might as well captain him. It's going to be 50-50 between him and Kane.
The slight factor that might work against Spurs is that they play away on Thursday, where Arsenal play at home in the Europa League second leg. Something worth mentioning.
Yeah. I'm on Kane at the moment. If I get a Brighton attacker just for fun, probably go in that direction, but I'm on Kane at the moment.
What would it take for you to captain Neil Maupay?
No, that's nothing. Nothing for now. That won't happen.
Not happening.
He's a good shout though. He's a good punt this week. It's just you do your things, right? There are certain players you just don't like.
Another player I think we haven't mentioned is Lallana. I think he's been playing fairly well. Somebody else worth monitoring on a free hit.
He's sort of the creative role though, because I think there are three better options in attack when it comes to Brighton. I think Welbeck,
I think
Maupay.
even Gross is a better option than
He's
Lallana.
created the
He
most
seems to be,
chances, 10 chances created for Brighton
yeah,
in the
he isn't
last four.
talked about, but he's getting into promising positions. He should have had a goal this week from a Dan Burn
Right.
assist.
Do you think it's possibly recency bias, all three of us picking Trossard?
I
No,
think so. It could be. It could be. I'm not so sure about him. As I said earlier, I might as well go with Mope.
no,
Um, it's a tough
not for
call.
me. Apple Bonkers and me have been Trossard fans for a long, long time.
Yeah,
We rate the player.
Mope is on penalties for Brighton, right?
I think so. I think Gross missed one, right? Or did they both miss one in that game against West
They
Brom?
both missed, and
They
Welbeck
both
also
missed
missed.
one recently, so
Yeah,
it's
so no, so
it's anyone's guess.
I think Gross missed it and Welbeck missed it. Maupay didn't miss, I think, if I remember
Yeah, but
correctly.
he's missed a lot in the past as well. So
Yeah,
no
Mope
idea
missed
who's going to be
in
on
the
penalties.
past. Yeah.
Right. Let's just discuss our teams.
Cool.
And we can discuss what we are planning with regards to the free hit. LR, you're first.
Yeah. So I'm in a pretty decent position. I've got Araloa as my keeper. I've got a decision between Araloa and Martinez, and at the moment I'm starting Araloa because I fancy Fulham in this game. In defense, I have Tete only. In midfield, I have Bale and Rafinha, and up front, I have Bamford, Antonio, and Kane. So I have 7 players at the moment, and I'm looking to get maybe 1 or 2 players to give me 8 or 9 players, and that's where I am. So at the moment, I'm already at 7, so I'm not looking like I'm going to be using that free hit chip. Especially Bamford is going to play.
So who was the player you are looking to bring in?
So it could be a Brighton attacker for Gundogan or somebody like a Saka for Gundogan. Or if I'm selling a defender, because I do have a good defense, I can maybe sell Maitland-Niles for Dawson or a Cancelo for a Tierney or a Cresswell. Those are the options that I'm looking at.
I like the Tierney option because
Yeah.
he's a good pick for the long term again.
Exactly.
Right. Bakar, you up next.
I have Areola in goal. Welkman as my only defender. Rafinha, Son, Bamford, Watkins. So that's 6 at the moment, assuming that Bamford and Son are fit.
And 2 free transfers.
If I decide not to free hit, I'll probably look at selling Calvert-Lewin and Salah for Aubameyang and Kane, and I might do Gundogan to Trossard as well. So I mean, those are the 3 moves I'm considering.
That's
for
interesting. You're happy to hold Trossard for the next few weeks, or are you considering that as a 1 week punt?
I mean, I have a good bench, so I can afford to bench him.
That's true, but your bench is probably going to come into play so much with the rotation and everything, right?
Yeah, but when you have a
He
good
has-
squad of 15 players, I don't
Yeah,
really
yeah.
mind.
Yeah, all 15 of his play. So he's
Yeah.
got a pretty
That's fair.
heavy score.
And I mean, Trossard is not a bad pick. He can score against anyone. I'm just trying to understand.
Actually, after the conversation that we had about Fulham Leeds, I'm even thinking of just getting in a Fulham attacker instead of a Trossard, because Fulham are playable in the next 3 game weeks as well. So maybe getting Lookman instead of a Trossard. Maybe do something like
The
that.
thing with Lookman is that his numbers are decent for shots inside the box and chances created, but he's not really getting those big chance involvements. It's Maja who's getting
Yeah.
those big chance involvements. The quality of the chances Maja is getting is far greater than those of Lookman.
Yeah, but we're not selling Bamford, Antonio, or Kane, right? So the comparison is between a Trossard and a Lookman,
Yep.
not
Absolutely.
Maja.
Striker spots are far more precious.
Yeah.
So what are you thinking, Bakar, with regards to the free hit? What is going to sway you either way?
If Son and Bamford are missing out, I'm almost 100% free hitting. If one of them misses out, I'll probably just take the hit and roll in with 8 players. I think
Okay, so
that's where I stand.
so what would be your plan for 33 then? Would you eventually get rid of your City player? I guess you probably wouldn't bring in Kane then, right? After the international break.
That's interesting because I do think he's probably the best shout for captaincy in 30.
That's where it's tricky. That's why I wanted to ask, because ultimately now if you do use your free hit, almost every transfer has to be catered towards getting a team out in 33, unless you're prepared to feel like 8 to 9 players, which is obviously an option as well.
Yeah, and the fact that one of my free transfers is going to go to waste as well, should I choose to free hit. So that's another thing worth considering. But if I choose to free hit, I'll just reassess the plan next week. I won't think too much about it right now.
Hmm. Right. So I think largely, I think we can be pretty optimistic on Bamford. I think Son, I'm a little bit more 50-50 about, but we can discuss this, and again we'll post an update closer to
It's
Friday.
interesting that
More
both
on
of you
Son,
are
let's
considering
assume.
selling Salah, and I'm not looking at selling Salah at all. It's how the tables turn.
Let's
Yeah.
assume that that Son. We hear nothing more concrete on Son. Um, would you sell him at all this week?
No, because he's back for the Newcastle fixture, right?
Exactly, same here. So that's why I'm not considering selling him either.
So in that sense, a free hit does benefit. Let's say now Bamford and Son are both out for 1 week alone. You still want them in your squad for 30. In that case, the free hit could work in your favor.
Hmm.
So it's a very fine balancing act. There's no
For sure,
clear-cut
for
decision
sure.
either way. So
Yeah,
It's
you
very
guys
hard to
have
make a
tough
decision right
decisions.
now before we get more injury updates.
and again, I think the 35 possible double is a big curveball. 33, I think you can still navigate because we don't have any Southampton players. We barely have Fulham players. It's manageable. But 35, the incentive of having the double is probably what's making me look
Yeah.
towards holding it now. I'll just walk through my team. I've got even fewer players than you. I've just got Martinez, White, Son, Rafinha, and Kane right now who play in 29. And so I've got two free transfers. What I've got in mind is I'm probably going to do Salah, DCL, and Brewster out for Aubameyang, Antonio, and Bamford if Bamford's fit. Watkins, I'm not so keen on, but I don't mind Watkins with the fixture he has the week after as well. I might even go for a 1 week punt on Marja, or I might even do Lingard in for somebody.
Go Maja or Watkins off. I'm not convinced by that Villa attack without
Yeah, I'm not
Grealish.
either, and
Yeah.
I like these relegation like threatened teams towards
Exactly.
the tail end of the season,
Mm.
right? You always have
Exactly.
a Connor Wickham or somebody
Yeah.
else who like pops up.
And it's fun to have your players in them as well. It makes watching the games more fun as well.
Absolutely, and he's cheap, so you can always be
Yeah.
there. Like as so, I might go for
Yeah.
Marja in
Yeah.
that
I like
case.
that shot.
So what that would give me that let's say assume that Sun is out now. It would give me what 7 players, and I'd still be okay with that because I'd essentially be missing a few players in defense, like probably two defenders. Like we're talking about a Brighton defender, I'd be missing. I'd probably be missing a Tierney or a Cresswell, who I'm not too enthusiastic anyway about
Yeah.
the prospects. Another midfielder maybe in the I think you guys have got Lingard, Trossard, or somebody like that. So it's not too bad. I think the trade-off in that sense.
Yeah, I think the main catch is going to be a lot of the free hitters are going to be having the defenders in addition. I think, especially that Brighton defense, that Newcastle goal is going to be one of the most crucial events of the weekend if that happens, in terms of where the free hit's going.
Yep. So that's what
Oh,
we'll post further updates as we get them on Friday. Let's move on
all
to the
right,
Q&A.
all right. Quickly moving on to the Q&A. Uh, this one's for you, Bakar. Based on yesterday's results and Wilder's departure, are Sheffield United the whipping boys? This question is from Bhavik.
Yeah. So I think it's a bit too early to call, and I do expect things to slightly improve when they appoint a new manager. And as I completely agree with your analysis earlier that maybe this game was a bit of an anomaly, but yes, they will be one of the teams to target. But I won't expect them to lose 4-0, 5-0 every game.
All right. Zoff, this one's for you. It's from FPL Google. He already has Alonso and Rudiger. Should he stick with them against West Brom and then shift to Aspi or deal with the rotation risk for the run-in? I'm assuming he's asking about Alonso.
Right. Primarily, I think just stick. I think Alonso is going to be featuring more often than not. I think just stick.
All right. Next question is from Stadium of Sports. Hope you boys are doing well. Thank you so much. We're doing fine. Hope the same at your end. Most of the season has been about having a five-man midfield. But with low-scoring games, is it time to switch to 4 or 5 defenders with the likes of City, United, and Chelsea defense? I'm going to answer this one based on the sheer amount of football that these guys have played. And I mean, my team, I had a lot of the popular attackers. Nobody brought in any attacking points, and all the points came in defense. I think it's a legit strategy. I think it's very much a legit strategy for the run-in. So I'm not against the idea
No, totally.
at the
This is
moment.
something Bakar and I were discussing on chat
Exactly.
yesterday. That in general, right, there are tools which you can
Yeah,
use to take out your average for each position for the season. And I just did a
yeah,
comparison in terms of like defense. The points have been crazy this year. Part of it has been down to the Man City double defense, but in general, the points in defense are very high this year.
So many good defenses. Man City, West Ham, Chelsea are now delivering. United are now delivering. The Dallas did his bit for the season. So
Liverpool
many points
back to
in.
back clean sheets.
Yeah, oh yeah, and Trent got 3 bonuses as well. Good differential for the runner. The stats are still pretty poor when it comes to
But
defense.
fixtures are decent.
Fixtures are decent. Fixtures are decent. All right. So yeah, I think all three of us think that's a fair enough strategy, right?
Maybe
Going
not
three,
five
four.
at the back, but four.
I
Walsh
think it's a bit
from
overkill
the
idea.
FML FPL podcast, he wildcarded after the double game week. He went triple Chelsea defense. Served him well so far. Like that as a
Yep.
shout.
Great.
Uh, All right. Next question is from General Zod. If you had 2 free transfers and 6 players for Game Week 29, is there merit in carrying a free transfer into 30 to do a mini wildcard for long term targets? I mean, I just want to say that if you're getting in like the teams that we mentioned that are worth taking a hit for or worth transferring him, there are 4 or 5 teams who are good for this week as well as for the long term. So think about, I think the extra game is worth prioritizing. So I wouldn't say you want to do a mini wildcard after. Just bring the good long-term targets right now, unless you're not convinced about them.
I'd agree
Anything
with
to
that.
add?
Not much.
Nope.
And also, I would say like this week is quite. Let's say you have 2 free transfers and you're bringing in 3 players. You're almost guaranteed to make up that it just in appearance points.
Yeah, yeah. I think the thing is that he probably has somebody like a Jota in his mind, and he doesn't want to commit to a Lingard and then get stuck in that position because he prefers a Jota.
Yep, I get that.
That's where he's probably coming from. All right. Next question, very interesting one. It's from Sridhar Kumbar, and it's fun. I'd like to know this about you boys as well. Inspired by a question this week on the FPL Surgery podcast. Great podcast, by the way, which I thought was fun. What's your greatest ever FPL moment and your worst ever FPL mistake, Mister Number 4 in the world at one point? What's your thoughts, Bakar?
Buying Harry Kane when he was 4.5 as a forward when no one else had him is by far my best FPL moment of my career. Um, I'm sure you and Zoff are particularly aware of my worst moment as well, so I'd let Zoff take the floor for
No, no. What's
this.
the worst moment? I don't know.
JJ.
I
You don't
didn't.
know? Let
No, I
Zoff.
don't.
So this was, I think,
It's related to a certain Jamie Jackson.
I'm sure people would be aware of this.
Oh yes.
This
Oh
two
yes.
three
I
years
remember.
ago. So
Yeah.
before Man City played Huddersfield. So one of the journalists that covers Man City for the Guardian, he came out with an article stating that Aguero is a doubt for that week. So the whole week in the chat, like Bakar had been going on like, I'm going to do Ani in for a hit. I'm going to do Ani in for a hit, and I called him out that saying, Bakar, you're talking out of your ass. You're never going to do this. So stop talking shit. So he went ahead and did it. And though Ani scored, Aguero went on to get, I think, 3 goals and assists. I think it was 20 plus.
Yeah, I had
And
him
it
in my
was,
team. I
I think it
remember that very
was
clearly.
the most captain or second most captain as well.
I captained him that week as well.
Same.
Bakram, you were talking about this as well, and I was like, I don't believe it. I'm going for the
Yeah,
Ani.
it's
Same.
too painful for me to even talk about, so I let Zoff take the honors.
Yep.
Fair enough. Fair enough. I actually missed that Kane season. That was the Kane breakthrough season was the season I took a break from FPL as well. So I missed his breakthrough into the game. But great, and you were one of the first few to get Kane. That's
Yeah,
great.
for sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
And you also had him for the run-in that Zoff missed out on towards the end of the season as well. And that's where.
Yeah.
So nice. I didn't know you had this little affinity to Kane. Zoff, what about you?
For me, the best moment was that year when RVP won United the title. It was Boxing Day. So I had a small inkling that RVP would be benched that week. He had played 90 minutes almost every game. So he was by far the most captain. So he did end up getting benched, but he came on and scored. So he got some 6 points. I wasn't too happy. So I had been debating between Berbatov and Walcott for captain that week, right up to the deadline. I'd constantly been switching between
This
the
is
two
when Walcott was playing for Saints or Arsenal
for Arsenal.
Arsenal.
And this was when he was
against
playing
Newcastle.
against Newcastle, and he was playing for a contract at that point. So it turned out that Walcott actually, I think he got a hat trick and 2 assists. So he got me 26 points into 2 as captain 52. It remains to date my largest single game week haul.
Nice, nice.
So that
Really
was
nice.
probably it. Worst moment, I can't really think of anything in particular really. That can maybe no, nothing I can really think of.
All right, fair enough. Sterling was emotional last year. Probably
Yeah,
something like
probably something like that. Something with Sterling last year, multiple instances.
Yeah, I've taken on the
But
tag this year
but
for sure.
nothing burnt as much as JJ, I'm sure.
Hands down.
All right, my favorite moment in FPL, it's probably between so Aguero and Giroud are comfortably my two favorite FPL players of all times. Like, little known fact is when Oli Giroud was playing for Arsenal, he averaged close to 16, 17 points per appearance in my FPL team. So he's been very loyal to me. I had this little inkling with both Aguero and Giroud, and they did well for me. And Giroud actually in the final game week in the season I came as India number one, not the last season, the season before that. I had no idea that I was competing for India number one spot, and I just got in Mane and Giroud for a hit in the final game week of the season. Took a punt, had a feeling about Giroud. He was playing against Aston Villa, and he scored a hat trick. And I wasn't even watching the game. I was on a vacation with the family, just sipping on some gin, and then my brother comes in and tells me Giroud's already scored a brace, and we put on the game, and in the end he scores a third goal as well. So, and then suddenly we didn't have live FPL at that time as well, so I'm waiting 5-6 hours for the game to update, and I realize I just hit uh, India number one. Wasn't expecting that at all. So yeah, that's probably my favorite FPL moment of all time, and my worst FPL mistake always has to do with Mo Salah. I've bet against him a lot of times, but the one that's, I mean, the second worst moment is probably at the start of the season where I went without him for the Leeds home game, and I was 40, 50 points behind everyone in game week one. But the worst one was about, I think, 3 seasons ago. I sold Salah and bought Mane. And in that week, Salah got a hat trick and an assist, and everybody had him captain.
The
So
Watford game, I remember that.
the Watford game,
Yeah.
yes, that hurt me heavily. So yeah, that's probably my worst FPL moment. But I wouldn't call it a mistake, because I think that sort of psychology that I've had in terms of playing this game has led to my good finishes as well. So I wouldn't necessarily call it a mistake.
It's strange that I can't remember the worst moment. It seems quite funny to me.
Yeah, because you're never betting against the templates of.
Exactly. That's
I think
what that's what I was going to say. You always play safe.
I think that's what it is.
Yeah. All right. That's it from us. We're not sure if we're going to be doing a podcast in the international break, but we'll keep you guys posted on Twitter. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And if you really, really like us, go to patreon.com/the FPL Wire. Also, we'll be announcing the winners of Game Week 28 soon. The week after this, you have a chance to win a shout out from Indian squash player Deepika Palikal as well. So do join our league, and that's it from us. See you on the other side. Good luck, guys. Any last words, boys?
Nothing much. Good
Good
luck,
luck
guys.
for the game week.
Enjoy the international break.
Take
Thank
care.
you.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.